Hello, students. Let's start a new chapter Biodiversity and Conservation, which comes under the unit Ecology. Have you ever wondered about the rich variety of organisms present on the earth? There are more than 20,000 species of ants, 28,000 species of fishes, 20,000 species of orchids, and 3 lakh species of beetles on the earth. Ecologists and evolutionists have been trying to understand the significance of such diversity. In our biosphere, immense diversity or heterogeneity exists not only at the species level but at all levels of biological organization, ranging from macromolecules within the cells to biomes. Biodiversity term is coined by a scientist called as Rosen and is popularized by the sociobiologist named Edward Wilson to describe the combined diversity at all levels of biological organization. Biodiversity is divided into 3 levels of biological organization. They are genetic biodiversity, species biodiversity, and ecological biodiversity. Let's see what is genetic biodiversity. A single species might show high diversity at the genetic level over its distributional range. India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mangoes. What is species diversity? The diversity at the species level, for example, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than the Eastern Ghats. What is ecological diversity? If you look at the ecosystem level, India, for instance, with its deserts, rainforests, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuaries, and alpine meadows, has a greater ecosystem diversity than Norway. It has taken millions of years of evolution to accumulate this rich diversity in nature. But we could lose all that wealth in less than 2 centuries if the present rates of species losses continue. Biodiversity and its conservation are now vital environmental issues of international concern as more and more people around the world begin to realize the critical importance of diversity for our survival and well being on this planet. Let's see how many species are there on Earth and in India. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, in 2004, the total number of plant and animal species described so far is slightly more than 1.5 million, but we have no clear idea of how many species are yet to be discovered and described. For many taxonomic groups, species inventories are more complete in temperate than in tropical countries. Some extreme estimates range from 20 to 50 million, but a more conservative and scientifically sound estimate made by Robert May places the global species diversity at about 7 million. Let's look at some interesting aspects about Earth's biodiversity based on the currently available species inventories. More than 70% of all the species recorded are animals, while plants, including algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms, comprise no more than 22% of the total. Among animals, insects are the most species rich taxonomic group, making up more than 70% of the total. That means out of every 10 animals on this planet, 7 are insects. The number of fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of the species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. It should be noted that these estimates do not give any figure for prokaryotes. Biologists are not sure about how many prokaryotic species there might be. The problem is that the conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable for identifying microbial species, and many species are simply not culturable under laboratory conditions. If we accept biochemical or molecular criteria for delineating species for this group, then their diversity alone might run into millions. Let's see the biodiversity of India. India has only 2.4% of world's land area. Its share of global species diversity is an impressive one, that is 8.1%. That is what makes our country one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. Nearly 45,000 species of plants and twice as many of animals have been recorded from India. Would we ever be able to complete the inventory of biological wealth of our country? Consider the immense trained manpower and the time required to complete the job. The situation appears more hopeless when we realize that a large fraction of these species faces the threat of becoming extinct even before we discover them. Nature's biological library is burning even before we catalogued the titles of all the books stored here. The diversity of plants and animals is not uniform throughout the world, but it shows a rather uneven distribution because it is affected by two factors called as latitudinal gradients and species area relationship. Let's see how latitudinal gradients affect species diversity. Species diversity decreases as we move away from the equator towards the poles. With very few exceptions, tropics harbor more species than temperate or polar regions. Colombia, located near the equator, has nearly 1400 species of birds, while New York at 41 degree north has 105 species and Greenland at 71 degree north has only 56 species. India, with much of its land area in the tropical latitudes, has more than 1200 species of birds. A forest in a tropical region like Ecuador has up to 10 times as many species of vascular plants as a forest of equal area in a temperate region like Midwest of the US. The largely tropical Amazonian rainforest in South America has the greatest biodiversity on the earth. It is the home to more than 40,000 species of plants, 3,000 species of fishes, 1,300 species of birds, 427 species of mammals, 427 of amphibians, 378 of reptiles, and of more than 125,000 invertebrates. Scientists estimate that in these rainforests there might be at least 2 million insect species waiting to be discovered and named. Let's see what makes tropical regions so special for having greater biodiversity. Ecologists and evolutionary biologists have proposed various hypotheses. Speciation is generally a function of time. Unlike temperate regions subjected to frequent glaciation in the past, tropical latitudes have remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years and thus had a long evolutionary time for species diversification. Tropical environments, unlike temperate ones, are less seasonal, relatively more constant and predictable. Such constant environments promote niche specialization and lead to a greater species diversity. There is more solar energy available in the tropics, which contributes to the higher productivity. This, in turn, might contribute indirectly to greater diversity. Let's see how species area relationships affect the biodiversity. German naturalist and geographer Alexander von Humboldt observed that within a region, species richness increased with increasing explored area, but only up to a limit. In fact, the relationship between the species richness and area for a wide variety of taxa turns out to be a rectangular hyperbola. On a logarithmic scale, the relationship is a straight line described by the equation log S is equal to log C plus Z log A, where S is species richness, A is area, Z is slope of the line, C is y-intercept. The value of Z lies in the range of zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2, regardless of the taxonomic group or the region. But if you analyze the species area relationships among very large areas like the entire continents, you will find that the slope of the line to be much steeper. For example, for fruit-eating birds and mammals in the tropical forest of different continents, the slope is found to be 1.15. In this session, you have learned about biodiversity, its types and patterns. We'll continue the chapter in the next session. Thank you for listening to me.